Hello, and welcome to the Food Startups Podcast, the first episode of 2016. As you can see, I changed it up this time. No music, no intro. And, there's a reason for that. The main one being that my producer is still on vacation in Eastern Europe. So I got my mic set up and I'm just going to do it in one take. Great stuff for you guys. And I want to welcome anyone that's found the show through Product Hunt, all new listeners, and of course, my faithful old listeners alike. Today, we're going to go back to the last 10 episodes, get a lesson from each one of them, which I think is important. For my own edification, it's really nice sometimes not just to look for new material, new books, new projects, but reread books and revisit projects and get a more, or should I say, a more depth in what we're doing here. So if you listen to some of these episodes, I'm going to take my own lesson that I got from it. And if you haven't, this is a great starting point. Maybe if you hear one that really stands out, a lesson or a guest that you're really interested in, you can go back and listen to it for even more information and feedback from that expert. All right, I'm going to go right into it here. Episode number 66, Life Lessons from Bob Moore of Bob's Red Mill. Don't even need an introduction to that company. But one thing that was really interesting, his decision to start the mill, at least, 40, 50 years ago, was based on a rare book he found in a library. So to me, it was just kind of and the book, I should mention, is How to Set Up an Old Style Stone Mill, that even at that time in the 60s and 70s, they weren't really in production. They were like museum pieces. And he had to follow his intuition there and go with the timing of it, because it would be very hard to get market research. Why should I start a mill? He had to build a culture around it and have the interest in doing it. So, there weren't too many numbers he could put out there. He just kind of had to go and do it because he felt like he had to do that. So I think that's a great first lesson, trust in your gut. And there's plenty more you can get from that episode and the book about Bob's Red Mill. All right. Episode number 67, The Maple Syrup Whiz Kid. This is a kid, Josh, who was 11 years old, and he started his maple syrup company. And now at 17, maybe he's 18 by now, a freshman in college, he is nationwide, 300 plus stores. And last time I talked to him, he was hiring 4 new employees. Really impressive person. And what I got from him was personal traits as a marketing advantage. He's using his age. Not all of us can do that. But being so young, he's going to get a lot of opportunities. And he recognized that his age gets him opportunities that if he was, 30, 35, 50, it wouldn't be so impressive. So he takes advantage of that. Now, we may not, or probably most of us, or if not all of us, are not 17 years old listening to this podcast with a business idea or a business in motion, but we all have personal traits that we can utilize to help the marketing and the sales and the culture of our brand, company, or startup. So that's something you need to think about. Everyone has something. I promise you that. But that's what I got from Josh. Okay. Number 68 was the legendary investor Jim Rogers. Skip the MBA and start a farm. This guy is, he was at the top of his game in Wall Street a long time ago. And now he's living in Singapore, still investing in commodities. And he's a genius. He's at the highest level of anyone I've ever had on this show. So I really encourage you to listen to this one. I got a lot of lessons, but the number one was being willing to take a stand and bet on a minority opinion. He made huge bets on a lot of things that were going to fail, like the .com, the 2008 crash, commodities, and he's very bullish in food and agriculture, which is why I brought him on the show, and even countries. Botswana, he went on a road trip around the world where he set a Guinness World Record and saw that Botswana fit certain criteria, and a landlocked country in Africa was way ahead of any of its other countries, and he invested in everything there and made tons of money. Um, so yeah, he had also had to endure a lot of backlash for his minority opinions. But usually, I'm going to go to a couple quotes here. Revolution is a spectator sport. The majority will sit in the stands and watch the factions fight. At the end, they will choose side with the team that is winning. Or, whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it's time to reform or pause and reflect. So yeah, I mean, take a minority opinion and don't be afraid and be able to deal with the backlash, because a lot of times, almost always, those crazy ideas that were once crazy become the mainstream because people were able to bet on themselves and see things that other people didn't see. Episode number 69, Michelin Guide in less than a year. Melanie Moss of Mini Melanie. She is a pastry chef that worked under Dan Barber. You can check out Dan Barber on Chef's Table on Netflix. Amazing episode. But she makes really cool jewel-inspired pastry like emerald truffles. And yeah, really, really cool stuff. So for me, the number one lesson was creating authentic excitement. They have a blog, and her sous chef Alex helps out with this, and they kind of share everything that they're doing and how they're feeling about their business, how they're going to grow, the why, photos. Whenever they get in magazine press, like, you can kind of follow them along, and you feel the excitement of a growing startup. And I think that enabled them to get support from a lot of other cool startups like Spotify, et cetera, in New York, as well as online orders, and mentioned in magazines as recently a great holiday and Christmas gift. So they're really authentic and transparent, and they share their excitement. You can feel it through Facebook, Instagram, and their blog. So that's the lesson there. Episode number 70, 6 Strategies to Become a More Effective Food Entrepreneur, which was by me, where I consolidate a lot of leaders in entrepreneurship and alternative education, as well as my own learnings through the podcast and my own entrepreneurial endeavors. So out of those 6 strategies, the one that I keep coming back to, define and amplify your signal. The signal, again, I'll define. It's kind of the energy and the aura you give off when you introduce yourself to people. So they say, X person, Sarah, she's about this. Sarah works in, let's say, I don't know. Sarah is the social entrepreneur for nonprofits in Mexico, or whatever it is. But giving off that signal, I mentioned mine is, I work in sustainable agriculture for Latin America, but making sure people feel that signal, because the more people resonate with your signal, the more opportunities are going to open up for you, because they'll be looking for it. You're putting yourself on the radar of others. Episode number 71, 10x Thinking via Democratization and Disruption with Bluecart. So Bluecart is really cool. They are a online ordering app for restaurants and suppliers and vendors. And they made a huge change pretty much the day we launched, or I'd say a week before. I actually delayed the launch to make sure they were already changed their new business model. But they made it free for everyone. And that's the lesson. Change your business model and change the world. Bluecart is not the only. In fact, it's one of many apps for restaurant buyers and vendors to simplify ordering and selling. But by making it available to everyone, they increase their access to even the very, very small vendor who can't afford $30 a month for an app. And they lowered the barrier to entry, obviously, and will increase their market share for sure in this space, and hope to sell premium services to the ones that can afford it. So 10x Thinking via Democratization and Disruption, and by making their service completely free, they are disrupting the restaurant ordering industry. Episode number 72, Transform the Online Recipe Space with Junie of Chicory. Chicory is an online I'd say, plugin for ordering recipes. So blogs and restaurant websites. I think they got Time on there, so they got a lot of Food and Wine Magazine, et cetera, et cetera. Where you see a recipe, one-click ordering if there is an online grocer that can deliver the recipe. And the lesson here is solving your own problem. He loved cooking and getting together with friends and cooking recipes, but after work, you don't feel like going out to buy nutmeg and three other ingredients that you don't have in your kitchen, and maybe you can't find it and you have to go to three stores. So by ordering the ingredients ahead of time, you remove that friction of having to go out and find all these ingredients, and you have everything right there. So that's the lesson. Solve your own problems. Number 73 was Fear No Fruit, the specialty produce champs, Karen Kaplan of Frida's. Frida's was credited with introducing the kiwi as long as playing a part in 200 other fruits and vegetables, including the mango, to the United States. And they're the kings, or I should say queens, of specialty fruit on the West Coast. And Karen is a high-level strategist. She's been a CEO for 29, 30 years. So the lesson is become a great CEO with time. You have to listen to her speak and understand the way she runs her company. And this is not something where you listen to the podcast and you're going to be an excellent CEO. But listening to how she runs her company and her ideas, you can at least start to develop some habits that, with experience and time, you'll become that great CEO and leader if you're trying to grow a large company like she's done very, very successfully. Okay, episode number 74, Inside the $1 Billion Food Delivery Wars with Martin Mignot, the French venture capitalist from Index Ventures, where they're leading in Europe, Deliveroo, I guess. And he learned that he is not an entrepreneur, but a venture capitalist where he invests and advises like 7 or 8 startups. So my lesson from here, I'm going to modify it a little bit, is using non-X to create X. This is basically, what should I not be doing? I did this for myself about a week ago. I was like, I should not be reading about sports. I should not be checking Facebook news feed. So what are the things that I should not be doing? And for him, right, those are kind of just small bad habits of mine. But for Martin, he realized after a time that he is not an entrepreneur, but a venture capitalist and investment advisor. He's very, very successful today at Index Ventures in London. But if he had stayed as an entrepreneur, it's probable that he would not have reached that same level of success. And he mentioned that in the podcast. Listen, I realized I'm not a great entrepreneur. So not just what you do, but what you don't do. So use non-X to create X. Okay, and the last lesson, number 10, the unscalable dirty work for success with Charlie Go. The book is called Unscalable and is coming out this Tuesday. I encourage you guys to buy it. This is kind of easy, but the unscalable mindset, that's the lesson. It's what you need when you're in startup mode, and that's going the extra mile, working 18 hours days if necessary. Like one of the startups, I think DoorDash in the book, printing $30,000 worth of copies in the Stanford Library, doing whatever you have to do to get the startup off the ground. It's not going to be a clean system from the get-go. You have to go out there and fight for all your customers and making the system work and using an imperfect system to handle growth. Well, I hope you liked the show. Next week, I'll be back with a cleanly edited episode. My producer, and we have a phenomenal guest from 1 Degrees Organics. And yeah, thank you so much. And please contact me if you need anything or have any comments about the show.